Hey guys, fun stuff here today. We are busting out the cylinder heads on this big black Mopar. Um, just got these things out of the bag. These are the promaxx. I purchased these from Jegs, cylinder heads for my 440. They're completely assembled. These are the lower cost option. These are the as cast versions. They aren't all CNC ported. Supposedly the bowls have been, hand blended or cleaned up a bit. They of course have been, CNC machined, but they didn't go to the trouble to, hog out the runners and clean up the ports. These are 210 cc intake runners, and the ones that are CNC that cost about $1,000 more a set. They're considerably more. I want to say they're 240 instead of 210. Okay, well, we'll do a comparison with the iron heads. I have one of my 906 heads here. This is a 1968 440, and I've got that there for comparison. So we'll jot down some of the details. We'll compare them. We'll start disassembling these things and get ready to, check inside, make sure that there's nothing hidden underneath here, flashing in the casting, something like that. And I can already see we're going to want to clean up kind of gasket matching, they would call it. I'm not going to call it hogging them out or porting them, but there is definitely some material there that I think we can get rid of. I'll zoom in here so you can see what I'm seeing. If you look at that kind of straight on, it looks to me like we could get rid of some of that material in the corners. We'll get a gasket on there and see what it looks like. And then I noticed also on the intake side, as I was just glancing at these, this looks quite a bit thicker even than the iron heads. So we're going to want to clean that up a little bit as well. Again, we'll get the gasket on there and we'll see exactly what needs to be done. All right, first thing we'll do, let's get a weight on these things. I got this big iron one, fully assembled. We'll get that on the scale. Let's see what we get here. All right, that's coming in about 49, right thereabouts. Okay, so we got that on the scale at 49 pounds. Now it does have the studs in it for the exhaust manifold or headers. Those are beefy. All right, let's see what this one comes in at. Okay, 28. Bring the camera down there. You can probably see that. Okay, so 28 pounds. All right. So what is that, 21 pounds different? At least 20, okay? These have the studs on them, these don't, but it's close to 21. So let's say 20 each. That's getting 40 pounds off of the front of your car, off of your engine. So that's good in my book. All right, I'm gonna write that down. We'll keep track of this stuff. So we've got the stock 906s, and we got the promaxx. Yeah, they're probably an offshore head, but everyone's selling them. These things have come a long ways. The number on these is 9440. Okay, in case you're interested. So the cost on these, a pair, fully assembled, ready to bolt on, less your maybe gasket matching and stuff like that. I paid a little over $1,200. So they were like $1,300 and something at Jegs, and they always have that $150 off coupon that pops up. So with tax and everything else, I don't know, you're probably a little over $1,200. So why don't we write that down here, 12 to 1,300, And keep that in mind, if you had to go through your iron heads and clean these things up, disassemble them, start replacing valves and valve springs, get into, you know, your valve seats. You probably want hardened valve seats these days. You're gonna be cleaning these things up and porting them out, spending a lot of hours, and they have smaller valves. So I guess let's get into that next. So the weight of these things, these were 28 pounds and 49 pounds, right? Okay, now valve sizes. So your stock iron ones, let's see here. I should know this by heart, but it's been a while since I've been into this, so let's just double check them here. See what we get. Okay, 2.08. All right, so your intake is 2.08, and on the Promaxx heads, I guess we can measure them just as well, but I got a spec sheet here that came with them. So they're, well, that's funny. It says 22.14. Okay, yeah, 22 inches. I don't think so. Okay, there's a typo, but aside from that, it's 2.14 inches. All right, let's see if we can check one of these guys here. All right. It's hard to get right to the edge, but 2.16 I got on that. So they're at least 2.14 inches. Okay, I'll give them that. And then the exhaust valves. So your exhaust valves on the stock ones, there's two sizes. I think these are the 1.74s. So let's check that. Okay, there you go, 1.74. Okay, and the Promaxx, let's see, did they get that right? 1.81, yep, that looks right. So they're bigger. So that's good news. Interesting. Measured them the same way, I get like 20 thousandths more. So, okay, 1.84. Well, they say it's 1.81. We're going to disassemble these, and I will mic them or get the calipers on them when I get the valves out. So we'll circle back and check that. But what you'll find is if you take half of that, you'd have the radius. Pi r squared is the area. You'd find out that I think these are 3.4 square inches of area, and the other ones, I wrote this down, is 3.60 inches squared. So thinking about an area calculation, these are like 6% bigger. And your exhaust valves, 2.38, that's what I wrote, and 2.57 inches squared. Okay, so pi radius squared, so take your diameter of your valve, divide by 2, square it, or multiply it by itself, and times pi. So that's going to come out to be about 8%. Okay, and since I'm measuring them a little bit bigger, well, we'll see. Maybe it's even more than that, but it's at least 6 to 8% bigger valves, so that's cool. Okay, what else do we need to go over here? These have double springs with a damper. So there appears to be like 3 springs there, 2, round diameter springs, and a flat damper. So these are, I think, better than the stock heads from that perspective. Depends what cam you're running and everything else. A fresh set of stock springs might be fine. Now the cam I'm running, the Hughes cam, it says it needs, I think, 335 to 345 pounds when the valves open. These heads are rated at 345 at 1.25 inches, 130 at 1.8. So the difference there is 550.550 inches. And I believe that is where the Hughes cam is spec'd in that 335 to 345 range. So these valve springs will be adequate for the cam that I'm running. It's not a killer cam. I mean, it's going to sound good. It's a street cam. These heads here are set up for 600 lift. You can use a roller cam with them, The ones that are $1,000 more a set, I believe those you can have even more lift. And of course, they're ported out nice. So consider those if your budget is set up for that. But I was going for the low dough approach, and then I'll just gasket match them myself. Okay, they have a 5-angle valve job. They got the manganese bronze. I read diamond honed valve guides. They got the Viton seals. You know, on paper, these things are great value. You know, time will tell, I guess, when I get the engine together and we'll test it. We'll make sure everything is what we hope. But for now, I guess I'm happy. You know, they look nice. We'll start disassembling them. Let's take a look at the ports here. The exhaust ports. Let me set this down. Make sure your work area is clean. I wiped this all down before I got started. You don't want to gack up your heads. So what you'll see here on these stock heads, okay, get a measurement on one of those, and we can write it down and compare the two. But boy, the shape of it's quite a bit different. There's quite a like a taper on the big radius here. Where's my marker? I'll jot this down. Oh, here it is. Okay, so the exhaust port, the stock one, intake, exhaust. Your stock port was 1.575 and about 1.05 on the height. Okay, so we can multiply that out and check the area on that. 1.575 times 1.05, 1.65 square inches. Okay, and now let's compare it to these over here. Exhaust ports. Try to measure in the same distance to be fair. Okay. Well, 1.62, 1.63, I'll say. 1.63 on the width and the height. Let's see what we get there. Yeah, it depends where you're checking them, I guess, but you know, 1.15, 1.16, right around there. Okay, call it the height. Multiply that out and let's compare the port size. 1.63 times 1.15. Well, we can see it is bigger already, so 1.87 square inches compared to the 1.65. All right, so let's subtract the 2 minus 1.65. Okay, it's 0.224 divided by 1.65. Okay, about 13.6. So, you know, they're about 13, 14% bigger exhaust ports. So I'll just go with 14%. All right, and let's circle back and check those intakes. All right. Okay, my intakes. Width smaller on these. Okay, 1.11. And the height, let's see if I can get the height on one of these. Okay. 2.11, I guess, out of coincidence. Okay, we'll check the intakes on this. Okay. 1.13, maybe 1.14, thereabouts. So they're not much wider. That's interesting. But we're going to open those up a little bit, okay? I think they are taller. And of course, it depends. There's a radius you're fighting there, so depends where you measure them, I guess. It's at least 2.16. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, so multiply that out. 1.11 times 2.11. All right, 2.34 square inches, and 1.13 times 2.16. Okay, 2.44. Okay, and the difference of those is 0.1, so 0.1 divided by 2.34. As they sit, well, that's only 4%. But okay, so 4% on the intake. So the intake ports are about 4% bigger on these, and the exhaust ports are 14% bigger. So we got bigger valves, we got a nice 5-angle valve job, we got hardened seats, we've got bigger ports. You know, again, on paper, these things look like they're gonna work great for my application. You'll see that where this bolts down to your block, it's recessed a little bit there, right? So I have a feeling that they've got the same dimension as the stock heads. Yeah, so there may be a little bit less, but I'm going to use a washer on my head bolts, so I think that's going to be fine. What else do I see here? I guess at first glance they look great. I guess let's get into the disassembly. Oh, they're supposed to use stock push rod length too, so you don't have to get into buying different push rods right off the bat. So I'm going to go with the 1.5 rockers. After a year, I might switch to roller 1.6s after the cam's really well broke in. And again, the reason we're gonna tear these down is for 2 reasons, I guess, because we're gonna be grinding on them and we don't want metal bits everywhere. And I guess the other reason is because when we break in the cam, we're only gonna run one of the springs. So check with your cam manufacturer and see what they recommend. But yeah, the Hughes sheet that came with my cam said to definitely take these apart and take that inner spring out. Just run the outer spring during the break-in. So at least for the first half an hour, I'm going to try to run the engine, hope to have good luck, doing everything I can to avoid wiping out a cam, right? So, and then we'll figure out how to, you know, get that inner spring back in there on the engine. There's a couple methods for that. Obviously, you can't get a spring compressor like this in there, but I've got a small one that grabs onto the spring and can compress it so you can get the those retainers out. Okay, well, for disassembly, this should be pretty straightforward. Does that show up on the camera? I think it does. Okay, I could maybe move it just a little bit to the side. Maybe it's a little better. Okay, so we'll just get onto this first one here. Bring in your clamp. If you have a similar style, one like this. Okay, I'm going to snug it up a little bit by hand. I mean, it takes quite a bit of pressure to move this, so I've got my little cheater bar here. Okay, and now just start working a little bit, see if it starts to go, and if it doesn't, you know, you can give it a little tap. I've got a rubber mallet here. You saw that one go. Okay, so let's compress her a little bit. Okay, and don't drop your retainers there. Okay, there they are. And then you can go ahead and take your pressure off. Open her up, don't scratch anything. Okay. Those locks. Here's the cap. And there's the springs. So I'm just gonna put them back together the way they came. I'm gonna keep everything in order when I disassemble it. Probably be a good time now to mark everything. So why don't we do that while we're thinking about it. Okay, let's see here. Exhaust side, let's call this cylinder 1, 3, 5, 7. And we have 1 exhaust, 1 intake, 3 intake, 3 exhaust, 5 exhaust, 5 intake, 7 intake, 7 exhaust. All right. We'll keep them all together. It shouldn't matter. It's brand new, but you know, what the heck. So it doesn't take hardly any effort to do that. So spin these a little bit while you take them out. Run your finger over the where the those retainers or little locks go to make sure you don't have any burrs before you pull it through the seal and the guide. Okay. And they've been lubed up. So there's the first one. I'm going to get a box and I'm going to get everything set up in order. But let's go through one more while we're here on camera. I guess we can do this one from this side, or it's a little hard to work on. I'm going to flip it around. Okay. So come on in like that. Okay, compress that a little bit. Get my cheater bar on there. And if it doesn't want to go, keep it tight and just give it a little tap. That's usually all it needs. Okay. Yep. There it goes. So it locks out. There we go. Open her up. Be careful not to scratch things. And you're good to go. So I'm not going to bore you with the whole, process here, but again, feel for a burr. Feels good. Go ahead and get that intake valve out. And go through that on all of them, both heads. So you've got 16 valves to do. It's going to take a little bit of time. I'll come back on a different video and we will start grinding on these things. So what you're going to want to do is get your gasket kit, okay, and your exhaust gasket. This one's got some pretty big radiuses in the corners, and these things are hard to trim. So if you don't like your gasket, you might be better off getting a different one than trying to rework at least the exhaust gaskets. Okay, so let's see how these look. I'll change the camera angle a little bit. See if we can get a better look at this. Okay. So what I'm seeing here, if I center that up on the bolt holes, right about there, you can see the way these cylinder heads come. There's a lot of material in the corners. Okay. So I think I'm going to focus on cleaning that up to match the gasket, and we should be good on the exhaust side. Now let's take a look at the intake. Okay, set that aside for a second. Okay. This one's a little harder to, can't really balance it on that exhaust side, so let's just lay it like that. Lower the camera down a little bit more even. Grab one of these intake gaskets. Now you're going to have a valley tray, and you can check this against your valley pan and make sure that it's going to fit good. But I believe that it goes this way. Yep. And centering that up on those holes. Yeah, what you can see is the aluminum is much thicker than the gasket there. So there's some opportunity, as we noticed before, to clean this up a little bit. The height looks really good. We don't see a lot of extra material, in those four corners. It's just that they are a little bit smaller than the gasket here. So I think we can open those up a bit. Check your intake manifold too, right? If your intake manifold is this size and small, I guess you could consider running it. I have, excuse me, an Edelbrock intake that I think has considerably bigger holes. I will go grab that. I think it is around here somewhere. Where did I put that? Or maybe I won't. I think I threw it back on the shelf on the other side of the shop. Okay, well, you know what I mean. Grab your intake manifold and, you know, measure it, find out if it's got bigger ports. You're going to want to align those. My guess is the intake's going to look a lot like this gasket, and these need to be narrowed. Okay, so we'll come back on another video and work on that. And, oh, I know, now that we've got the valves out, let's take a look in here. Does that show up on the camera? Yeah. Okay. So let's see, do they do a good job in there? I can definitely see there's some marks. Okay, they've been doing some grinding on it. Okay. Let's see here. Trying to bring the angle in there. But you can see they've been working on it a little bit. Okay, some grinding marks. So they look really nice. There's hardly any casting stuff. I don't even think we have to do any cleanup in there. So we'll check them all. We'll check all 8 and see how it looks. But I'm real happy with that. They did a good job in there. You know, I think, you know, we'll probably spend, I'm going to guess, 10 or 20 minutes on each one of these. And unfortunately, those intakes are going to take a lot more material removal to thin out those webs. But hey guys, that's what it's going to take. I mean, 20 times 8, that's a couple hours. And then those intakes, whew, we might have 8 hours of grinding. I do have nice new carbides. And that's one thing you're going to want to do is get new tools, good tools, because it's going to save time. And get ones that have, you know, nice big openings on the flutes, so that the aluminum will clean out nice. Okay. If you got the ones with the small cutters, they'll probably clog up. But yeah, I don't know if that's focusing or not. But okay, got some nice new tools. So hey, we'll see. I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you.